Oh, Bond, Mr. James motherfucking Bond. Spectre is here. Spectre has arrived. People have been waiting on this movie since Skyfall dropped. Skyfall was the masterpiece for Daniel Craig. A lot of people have said Daniel Craig is the best James Bond since Sean Connery. So we're gonna review Spectre. This is Ray and this is LiveWire. So let's go in. First, I want to talk a little bit about James Bond. James Bond always had kind of like a uphill, downhill history. You know, starting with Sean Connery. He had the classics. My personal favorite, From Russia with Love. He also had Dr. No, Goldfinger. But then we also had the Roger Moore kind, which aren't my favorite. You know, it's a little goofy. You got your Moonraker, you got Octopussy, and there are some that people don't even know about, like Georgia Lazenby's on Her Majesty's Secret Service, if I'm getting it right, and Timothy Dalton, which I always thought was one of the great looking James Bonds, traditional looking James Bond. And then Pierce Brosnan, who was also a great James Bond, but never had the material worthy of his presence. You know, he had GoldenEye, and that was like a strong start for Pierce, but then he had Tomorrow Never Dies, World Is Not Enough, and the low of all lows was Die Another Day. So we're going here with the new one, because Daniel Craig, when they cast Daniel Craig, there was a bit of a backlash. People didn't like Daniel Craig for James Bond. He definitely had some fans reaching out and giving him a chance after they watch his gangster movie Layer Cake. But not a lot of people liked his look. He was too gritty. He was blonde, you know, and people just weren't going for it. Until Casino Royale dropped, and it kind of changed the game. He showed that it was a different kind of James Bond, a grittier James Bond, a younger James Bond, a darker. You know, he's not the one swagger-filled James Bond that Sean Connery was. You know, and people really liked that. I loved that. You know, Casino Royale I feel is one of the great James Bond entries. So Casino Royale was kind of like a prequel to the James Bond saga. You know, like the reintroduction to James Bond. You see how he became a 00 agent. You see how he fell in love with this Vesper Lynn, played wonderfully by Eva Green. And you see how he became more alone when he lost her. So a lot of people had, ever since then, super high anticipation. I feel like not a lot of people took seriously the James Bond character until Daniel Craig came. You know, with the Roger Moore and the Pierce Brosnan films, people just didn't take him seriously. So these ones now, it's people are taking them very seriously. So after Casino Royale, we had Quantum of Solace, and Quantum of Solace was a bit of a letdown. Now, not a lot of people consider it one of the worst films of the James Bond saga, but definitely the worst out of the Daniel Craig lineup. But it had a lot going against it because it was in the middle of a writer's strike. So it had about 4 different writers, you know, writing different patches of the script, and they had to work together to put the script, you know, put the script all at once, like patch it up. And it didn't really work. It was kind of a big letdown. It's definitely one of my least favorites. It was just action scene over next to action scene, barely any plot. So it was already going on a downhill thanks to Quantum of Solace. But then Sam Mendes came to direct Skyfall, the next one, and Skyfall was a more personal approach to the James Bond and his relationship with M. And we got Javier Bardem cast as the bad guy in that one, and that one really changed the game for James Bond. It was I believe it was the first James Bond film to reach $1 billion. It was critically acclaimed. People say it's the best James Bond since Dr. No or Goldfinger, From Russia with Love. It ties everything in beautifully. You had A wonderful cast. Judi Dench, Ben Whishaw was introduced as Q, Naomi Harris as a Moneypenny. We got the introduction of Moneypenny, and it's a black Moneypenny too, ready to change the game. We had also Ben Whishaw as Q, a young Q this time. And we had Javier Bardem, and and Ralph Fiennes too. Ralph Fiennes becoming the new M. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Skyfall. And if you haven't seen Skyfall, then shame on fucking you, man. You need to go to the red box or just blind buy that bitch. Seriously, because you won't be disappointed. So Skyfall left things on such a high note, and it was at the perfect time too, because it was in the 50th anniversary of James Bond, and everything just worked perfectly. And then we got a little bit of a rough patch. We were trying to find somebody to replace Sam Mendes, and the studio couldn't, so they paid Sam Mendes a lot of money to come back. Now we got Spectre, and Spectre comes out, and it's not great. I'll say that. There's a lot of problems going on for this movie. Now Sam Mendes is back, and we also got Daniel Craig, of course, and we got Ben Whishaw and Ralph Fiennes and Naomi Harris back. And the story tries to go and connect all the Daniel Craig films together. Now Skyfall went a different direction, because that's also what Quantum of Solace tried to do, put the movies together. And Skyfall went to a different approach. It decided to tell an individual story, and it was a stronger film for that. Now this movie, it's also the longest James Bond film, and it tries to tie in all the stories together. And it's about James Bond finding out who this mysterious character played by Christoph Waltz. He goes by the name of Franz Oberhauser. And not a lot of people know about him, but he's always been in the shadows. He's always been watching, especially Bond.
Information is all. Is it not? For example, you must know by now that the 00 program is officially dead. Which leads me to speculate exactly why you came. So, James, why did you come?
I came here to kill you.
And I thought you came here to die.
Well, it's all a matter of perspective.
And it's up to Bond to protect the daughter of an old foe. If a lot of people don't remember, it's Mr. White. From Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. And he makes a deal with Bond to protect his daughter, named, of course, one of them sexy-ass names, Madeline Swan, played by Léa Seydoux. If you guys haven't heard from her, you can always go to Netflix and watch one of my favorite movies from her. It's called Blue is the Warmest Color. Once you watch that movie, you'll know why. But she's also been around a lot. She was in Midnight in Paris from Woody Allen. She was one of the secret assassins in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. She's been in the game, and she's ready to become a Bond girl.
I have a question.
Well, what's that?
Why, given every other possible option, does a man choose the life of a paid assassin?
Well, it was that or the priesthood.
We also got a different Bond girl. We got Monica Bellucci. And Monica Bellucci is the first, from what I hear, the first Bond girl to be the same age as Bond. So yeah, that's pretty much the story of the film and little side bits about it. So I want to go in with this film, and I have to say, what the fuck, man? Really? What are y'all doing to my man Bond? I understand you guys want to do something different or trying to convert him a little bit into that Roger Moore silly escapade or try to mix in Daniel Craig swag with the old school Sean Connery swag, but it's not the same. Let Daniel Craig do what Daniel Craig do. The story is an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess, and it's a very disappointing, a bit of a letdown, especially when it comes to Christoph Waltz's character Oberhauser. You know, there's this connection between him and James Bond, but it's so rushed. We don't get any time to let it marinate. We don't build on it, you know, and they just, it's almost just like a fun fact, you know. Literally, Christoph Waltz feels like a cameo. He's in more scenes than Monica Bellucci, which I also feel is a bit of a waste, especially for somebody like Monica Bellucci to be cast in this film. A lot was wrong with this film. And I don't understand, because it's the longest James Bond film on record, yet I feel like everything was so rushed. Now, don't get me wrong, the action scenes are immaculately directed. Sam Mendes came back to direct, and instead of Roger Deakins, we got Hoyt van Hoytema as the cinematographer, who a lot of people have seen his work from Interstellar, and he does a great job as well. This is definitely, we know where the money got put in, and it's also put in with put in the action sequences. But the action sequences, other than the fantastic intro in Mexico City, not a lot of them make a lot of sense. One of the highlights here for me was Dave Bautista as Mr. Hanks, the right-hand man for Christoph Waltz's Oberhauser, who's always on the chase for Bond, and he's always just one step behind, but he's always that close to just get his hands on Bond. He has no words, no line of dialogue, but he has a lot of presence, and he's actually one of the most enjoyable things in this film. And I bring him in because there's this fantastic action sequence in a train where Bond and him go one-on-one, just go fully at it. And it dawns on me, who else is in this fucking train? Where's train security? Where are witnesses? Where's that? You know, and Bond is fighting this big ass brute. And once they finish fighting, he just looks at Leon Seydoux' Madeline Swan, and he's like, "Well, what do you want to do? I guess we can fuck." And that's exactly what they do. I'm like, what? What the hell is this? There's no sense of coherence in this film, and I blame it 100% on the script. Apparently, it's written by 4 people: John Logan, Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and Jess Butterworth. And I don't know which one deserves the fault, so I'm gonna blame it on all 4 of them, because they made a terrible script. For something after Skyfall. You guys should have stepped your game up. Now, I know a lot of people don't realize this, but there was apparently a lot of rewrites, because if you guys remember, they had a Sony hack last year. It was all the talk about, all the buzz was on the Sony hack last year, and they leaked the original Spectre script like about a week before they started filming. So they literally did rewrites as they were shooting the film, and it shows, at least for me, that the rewrites came and damaged the film quite a bit, just so you can have an element of surprise, and it just did not work at all for me. As you can tell, like I said, there are ties, there are little hints from different James Bond films from the past, and they try to tie in the whole Daniel Craig saga together. I guess you could give it a happily ever after. Maybe it's because Daniel Craig is so unhappy and tired of playing James Bond, and I understand it's a gruesome shit. Maybe they're trying to, finish him off or give him a happy ending or something so they can move on to a different James Bond or whatever. But I have to say, this was the worst direction to go to. A lot of people are going to be really disappointed with this ending. I'm not going to spill the beans on what the ending is, but my goodness, man, you won't believe your eyes. It's so rushed. It's so incompetently made. It really makes you feel unsatisfied, and it's unbelievable. It's completely against everything that Bond is, and it's just very disappointing. Let me talk about the pros in this film. Of course, Daniel Craig, he handles it very well. He is James Bond. He is this James Bond, and he was very good. Like I said, the supporting cast like Ralph Fiennes, Ben Whishaw, Naomi Harris, and Dave Bautista are all fantastic. They really settle into their characters quite well. And Dave Bautista is, to me, continuing to impress a lot, man. From Guardians of the Galaxy, I kind of liked him in Riddick. He was all right, but he's growing more and more as a screen presence, and I feel like he could be the next successful wrestler / actor next to Dwayne Johnson. So I'm really hoping that really works. Now, Léa Seydoux as Madeline Swan, I think, is one of the great highlights in this film. Now, the relationship between Daniel Craig and Léa Seydoux in this film is completely rushed. 1 minute, Madeline Swan is not digging James Bond. She don't like his swag. She don't like his style. She ain't having none of that. And 20 minutes later, she's so on his dick. It's just ridiculous. She just in a matter of minutes, she's already on him. And while they have good chemistry, you just don't believe it all feels too rushed. You don't believe that she really fell for him that fast. It just doesn't make any sense. And I feel like they should have worked on that relationship, a lot further. Let's go for the cons. Now, I already talked about the script. I already talked about the Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz is barely in this film, everybody. So if you're expecting a clash of titans of sorts, you might want to tone down your excitement, because Christoph Waltz is literally only there for 15 minutes at the most, and it's very disappointing. Now, his performance is more of the same, just a little toned down. It's a little toned down from what he usually does, but it's still the Christoph Waltz shtick. Dave Bautista had a more of a presence in the film, and he didn't even say anything. Now, the Monica Bellucci, she's only literally in 2 scenes, and here, what I mean about this script is I think they're losing touch on the kind of character Daniel Craig's James Bond is. This guy's a lone wolf. He's not as personable as the Sean Connery or Roger Moore type, and they really tried to push his character into that kind of territory, but it just does not fit him. He can't do that kind of stuff. And they try to do that with a scene with Monica Bellucci, where he seduces her while getting information, and it almost felt borderline rape.
Well, I can tell you that I don't trust you.
Well, then you have impeccable instincts.
If you don't leave now, we'll die together.
I can think of worse ways to go.
Ben, you're obviously crazy, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
It was very uncomfortable, even by James Bond standards, that this dialogue is atrocious. The dialogue throughout this film is atrocious, but in this scene is the most prevalent, that these people did not know what they were writing, and they should have toned down. How they treat the women in this film is how they, usually treat women. I mean, Moneypenny was a badass in Skyfall. Now she's just a pencil pusher in this one, not doing anything. And speaking of pencil pushing, the whole subplot of Ray Fiennes' M battling this guy Matthew Scott, I believe is his name. He goes by C, who's trying to take down the 00 program because he feels it's prehistoric. Yada yada yada. We've seen all this. We've heard all this before.
And in light of the new information I've given him, he's decided to close down the 00 program with immediate effect.
You don't know what you're doing.
It's not personal. It's the future. And you're not.
You're a cocky little bastard, aren't you?
I'll take that as a compliment.
I wouldn't. This isn't over yet.
I mean, I could have sworn that was Ray Fiennes' situation in Skyfall, that he feels the 00 program ain't working. And then they convince him. Now they give him the same plot, the same subplot, but on the other side? Come on, man. Y'all could have done something a lot more interesting. And if you couldn't find something more interesting, take that off and let us focus on just the James Bond and Oberhauser and Madeline Swan dynamic, which was way more important. It's oh man. And I say this again, everybody, prepare for that ending, because the beginning is great. The Mexico City scene is fantastic. Now it's not like the action or the production value isn't good. Everything is top notch. The script just takes it down so bad that you're shaking your head and ready to leave the door before the credits even roll. And prepare yourself for that finale, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's very I left hurt. You're not even gonna believe it, but yeah. So as a final score, I would probably give Spectre, I would give it a 2.5. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5. Now that's me being mighty generous, considering how bad the script was, but everything else was so top notch that it's just like I really feel so cut in the middle, because a lot of it was working, but the script just kills it. I mean, a lot of people even are mad about the Sam Smith song, the opening theme song. I don't even mind it. I actually was one of the few people that liked it. But hey, if you didn't like the Sam Smith song, you're not gonna like Spectre. So yeah, Spectre, 2.5 out of 5. And my hope is that, judging by this ending, like I said, I'm not gonna say what it is, but judging by this ending, I would really hope that Daniel Craig does just one more. I know, Daniel, I know you don't want to do this anymore, and I wouldn't blame you, man. 2 classics are more than enough. But if you could do us a solid and just do one more, and let us tie in this storyline right, or just finish out the storyline right, or do just one solid bang of a film, and go out with a bang, man. Don't go out with this whimper. Go out with a bang, and we'd really appreciate it, please. And then please get Idris Elba on the line for the next James Bond film before he's too old and it's too late. LiveWire.
Welcome, James. It's been a long time. And finally, here we are.